As I'm sure many of you already know, Steam has once again run its annual Next Fest event between February 21st and February 28th. For the uninitiated, this is a yearly celebration that aims to allow for indie developers to gain more exposure for upcoming titles and offers players the world over a chance to check out demos for thousands of upcoming projects that they may have not heard of. Now, while I often tend to miss my chance to dig into this event, this year I put a little time aside and tried out a few upcoming games from some smaller developers. Amongst the games I tried was a new game in the ever-expanding and ever-popular Warhammer 40,000 IP, titled Warhammer 40,000 Shootas, Blood and Teef. Now, as I'm sure many of you already know, the margin for quality when it comes to licensed Warhammer games is very large, with titles attempting to occupy almost every corner of the gaming landscape, from huge AAA titles to AA showings to smaller indie offerings and everything in between. So with such a massive scope of quality and genre variation, how would this small indie title from developer Rogueside shape up? Meh. Shootas, Blood and Teef, or SBT as I'll be calling it from this point on, is a side-scrolling shooter with a cartoony, almost Flash Player-looking art style, reminiscent of games like Alien Hominid and Castle Crashers. The object of the game is simple. Move from right to left, press some switches and turn some cranks to progress, and move through the level to the end of the stage. Oh yeah, and shoot pretty much everything in sight. In this demo, players are given the use of 3 primary weapons to choose from. The accurate and reasonably powerful pistol, which has a medium rate of fire, the even more accurate and high rate of fire machine gun, that despite these qualities is by far the weakest weapon of the 3, and finally, my personal weapon of choice, the widespread, shorter range and damage-heavy shotgun. Whether more weapons become available in the full release remains to be seen, but for now at least, these 3 do provide some variety. As well as these guns, you're also given a melee strike that was so useless I ended up never using it, and a set of grenades that can be useful if placed well, but are often a little at odds with the frantic nature of the game's general gameplay. You see, SBT is pretty constant. Enemies will spawn from all directions, and the player often has to keep moving to survive, balancing short bursts of shooting and movement in quick succession. The general run of play is to move to a new section of the level, defend it until all the enemies are dead, or until you've pulled all the relevant switches, and then move to the next section, rinse and repeat. Eventually, you'll reach the end of the stage, where you'll be pitted against a boss in another enclosed area, who will have a larger variety of attacks and a much larger health pool to deplete. They'll also usually spawn more mobs to deal with at the same time. Controls and general game feel are perfectly serviceable, but don't feel incredible at any point. And while I don't want to dwell too long on this, I will say that we've had a lot of 2D side-scrollers and shooters in the last 5 to 10 years that feel absolutely incredible to play, almost to the point where game feel is their strongest quality. SBT unfortunately doesn't really come close to many of these, and instead feels a little antiquated when it comes to how the game feels to play. Regarding the art style, the cartoony look and whimsical dialogue can occasionally create an interesting tone. However, its busy nature unfortunately often creates more problems than it solves. Firstly, there's not enough differentiation when it comes to the elements of the background and those that are in play. This means that it can become hard to spot enemies, focus on where to fire, or even avoid incoming attacks. This issue is especially prevalent in the boss fight sections, which often place several orc characters in the background that, in the heat of battle, are indistinguishable from those attempting to blow your head off or hack you to pieces. Moreover, when traversing the level before the boss, these issues can lead to it being difficult to know which platforms can be jumped on, which elements can be interacted with, and generally, which way the game wants you to go to progress. And then there's the bugs. Now, I get this game is in development, and so it's not expected to work flawlessly, obviously. There is always an expected lack of polish when it comes to Next Fest, and this title should be no different. However, having said this, even taking that into account, SBT has what I would consider to be far too many bugs present even at this stage. The UI failed to function on several occasions. I was unable to even play the game without using a controller, despite the fact that all the initial instructions and the control screen are for keyboard and mouse. My character got stuck and failed to move several times. Enemies would hit me from impossible locations, the sound would bug out almost constantly, and by far worst of all, every time I fought the boss at the end of the demo's first stage, a bug would occur that moved the camera away from the action to an earlier section of the stage, so I couldn't see what was going on, and thus was always killed. Unfortunately, all of this culminates in an occasionally fun, but somewhat forgettable and mediocre experience that can feel a little awkward to play and gets pretty boring pretty fast. Even putting aside the bugs and issues, this game feels like a mediocre title that would have come out back on Xbox Live Arcade back in the 360 era, attempting to mimic the success of deeper and more impressive titles like Castle Crashers. I don't want to be too negative. After all, this is a small team and the game's still very much in active development. But for me at least, the lack of depth, mediocre gameplay, and somewhat troublesome art style mean that I probably won't be picking this one up when it drops sometime in 2022. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know in the comments below whether you tried this game out or tried any games at Next Fest, and which ones you're looking forward to if you did. Also, if you did like this video, then please do give it a like, and more importantly, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ding the notification bell so you never miss any of this amazing content that I guarantee is the best on the internet. Or maybe not the best. It's pretty good though, right? I mean, I need validation. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and as always, stay safe out there.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.